back to hopefully what you're seeing as part 2 of our stream. I am going to go to our YouTube channel page here. I'm going to refresh and I'm going to see if it made it over to the YouTubes. So we'll take a peek here. So if you're out there and you can see us, make sure you say hello because we're having some technical difficulties today and we want to make sure that you guys can see us and hear us. So if you guys are out there and you can see us and hear us, yeah, Adam's Exploit says we are back. Okay, Alex, can you give
Now,
the people a
here's the
little
question. Yes, here's the question. Is there an echo? Is there an echo?
All right, let's
That
see.
is the magic question.
Hello, Adam's Exploits. Hello, Pixelpia. Hello, Mike. Thank you guys for coming back.
Yeah.
Can you please let us know if you're hearing an echo? It sounds good.
Oh, my word.
Hey! Oh! Oh!
Now, here's the funny thing is we didn't, well, I guess we changed platforms, but I didn't change mics.
You know, just some
Thank you
days,
for all.
you
Hey,
know,
everybody, thank you for hanging in there and coming back and meeting us.
we appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Goodness.
Yeah, we're so glad that we can actually have this chat with you. And here's the deal, right? I have always been a long proponent of live streaming and telling people that, like, you just don't know until
Yeah.
you're, like, live under pressure with eyeballs on you, like, how you're gonna react in certain situations, and for a lot of people, it's so nerve-wracking, it's
Yeah.
so scary, and you're trying to change the wheels while the car is in motion,
Hey, that's a
and
great metaphor. That is a great metaphor.
right? And so one of the things that's so interesting is that this fear right here, the fear of the unknown, of what's gonna happen, of all of that stuff is why a lot of people don't get into live streaming, and that's why they stay in more of a comfort zone of doing, like, video on demand. But
Mhm.
even, like, this fear that we're feeling, a lot of people fear when they're doing that video on demand. So I know that we
Sure.
were talking beforehand about how there are people out there who have a higher fear, like, their fear is more for public speaking than it is of even death. Is that, like
Yeah.
is that just, wow, it's such a staggering statistic because when you think about it, you teach people how to communicate better for a living. That includes in
Right.
jobs, on video, on a stage, and so just the fear of public speaking, which affects, 8% of apparently the population out there or more, it's a huge amount of people that have
Right.
such a hard time and need help. So, I'd love for you to talk oh, by the way, I was looking this up. There is a specific term for people who have a phobia of public speaking, and I think you know it now, right?
I can't remember it. I read it. What remind me because I read it a long time ago, and I just call it a fear of public speaking.
Yeah, fear of public speaking, or sometimes also tied in with some of the social anxiety type stuff. But fear of public speaking is called glossophobia.
Yeah,
So there's
claustrophobia.
actually, yeah, an official term for it, and it ranks up there. But it's for some people, it's higher than fear of spiders, fear of snakes, fear of needles, fear of
Right.
a lot of things. So we're gonna be getting into that. Especially, we're gonna take it up even higher, one more notch, which is, can you, as an introvert, still excel at things like public speaking or get comfortable with it when what you don't want to do is be around people, interact with people, or you have a fear of people? So, not necessarily a fear, but you know what I mean. You'd rather not be
Sure.
around people.
Sure.
So, we are going to be diving into all of those types of things. But let me ask you, how did you get into teaching and like coaching on this? Because is this what you teach at college?
Yeah, I teach this full time. I am a full time full professor at a college, a public college in the state of New York. I don't usually name it
No,
because,
I'm not asking you to. It's okay.
but I've been doing it for almost 20 years plus grad school, and I got into it because I was a music major in undergrad, and then I didn't really want to do the music theory. And then my friend said, take public speaking. You seem good at that. And I loved it. Became a communication major, got my master's, PhD. And then I started consulting along the way. I started doing workshops and professional speaking and working with clients and coaching clients. And all the way through grad school and even after I became a college professor. And then I started doing a YouTube channel. Let's see, 5 years ago, and on the same topic. So I've been doing
Wow.
academics and public um, speaking professionally for a while.
It's just interesting, and I feel like your experience not only in public speaking, but standing up in front of a classroom, having to, orate as you do to a
Mhm.
whole bunch of people who are just like staring at you for like answers.
Right.
That is kind of one of those you probably get real comfortable real fast after a few years of that, of just like kids looking at you, just being like, yeah, teach me all the things. So I'm sure it's a
Yeah.
little like nerve wracking. How does,
It is at first, yeah.
oh, yeah. So I'd love to talk to you about how did you also then start coaching people? Like when you're actually going through it, at what point were they like, you're really good at this. You should like teach others to do this? I mean, were you still thinking in your head, like, I barely know how to do this. How can I teach others? Or were you like, yeah, man, let's do this?
Well, when I started teaching public speaking, I was still a graduate student, and I loved it. And I said to the one of the professors, "I think I want to do some consulting." And he put me in touch with a guy named Alan Weiner, who has a communication consulting firm in Los Angeles, and he was my mentor. He let me be an intern while I was in grad school, and then when I graduated, he just kept hiring me to do workshops. I just loved it. He said, "You can do this. You're good at this." And it's so cool to see somebody who comes in nervous, anxious, long-winded, and you work with them for a little while, and then they're confident and they sound crisp. And it's like a before and after picture to me. And I just love to see that transformation over a very short period of time. So I got hooked.
Now, would you say that a lot of people who come in and are nervous about public speaking, have they had some traumatizing thing in their past where they, had to give a speech and it didn't go very well, or, just nervous for other reasons? Or like, is
Mhm.
there any commonalities that you see a lot of the time when it comes to people having fears of public speaking?
Well, yeah, and there are really different levels of public speaking fear. There's an old quote, I think it's from Mark Twain. He said there are two kinds of public speakers: people who get nervous and liars. Which basically he says everybody gets nervous to some extent, a little bit. I still get nervous, especially with new audiences, and I've been doing this forever. But then there's a subsection, and I think that's probably the 8% or so that you mentioned, that have a disproportionate anxiety anytime they have to face speaking in public. They're frequently the same people who don't like to go to parties and don't like to meet new people as well. There's something called communication apprehension that is beyond just the ordinary butterflies in the stomach or feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Everybody gets a bit nervous because you're about to do something special. You're about to stand in front of a group. It's like being an athlete and going on the field. Athletes get nervous. They might not call it that. They call it they're pumped up, they're amped. It's really very similar feeling. So some people have lots of fear, and that's probably the ones that show up on those lists. As I think Jerry Seinfeld was the comedian who said that because so many people fear public speaking, and then even death is sometimes lower on that list, as you mentioned, his joke is that many people would rather be in the casket rather than giving the eulogy, which is, I think, if you really pushed people, of course, they would rather do a speech than die. But it does make a strong point.
Yeah. I no, I can completely, see where that's coming from, especially I don't know what it is, but there are a lot of times I really don't wanna be noticed. I don't wanna go to a party and have a bunch of
Right.
people come talk to me. I don't mind having a one-on-one conversation, but I usually don't go out of my way and seek it. And so it
Yeah.
feels very strange a little bit when you are doing some sort of public speaking that it's like all eyes on you, and then if people have questions, they're gonna come find you.
Yeah.
Right, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, that's a nerve-wracking feeling," and one thing for me, and if we have not communicated this yet clearly, I am very much the introvert, and Alex is not.
Yeah.
He
You
he
were telling me
enjoys
that.
people. He likes people.
I do like people. I'm very extroverted.
Yeah, which I think is amazing as a coach, especially a communication one, and I think it's interesting, one thing that I do when I'm preparing and I have to do a speech or anything like that, I do a lot of, like, Post-it notes and preparation and, like, making sure that I really know my subject matter because one of my fears in public speaking is that someone almost like imposter syndrome, like I shouldn't even be up here talking about this
Mm,
thing, and I feel like I have to try and over prepare mentally for what I could be asked, like, are they gonna get me and then be like, why are you even giving this speech? Like, who are you? Like, I try and like run through every scenario of what someone could ask so that I can calm
Yeah.
myself down and be like, it's okay, you know stuff, you know things, you know. And I don't know if that's kind of a very common thing to try and over prepare to reduce the nerves, but for me,
Yeah.
that's something that I've done before.
That's absolutely, it's actually a great strategy because you might not feel, oh, I'm going to crush this, but you do know your stuff. And when you really have prepared and you say, okay, whatever else happens, I know what I'm talking about here. And you can fall back on that preparation, that knowledge, even if you don't share it all. In fact, you probably don't share half of what you know in the actual presentation, but it's there in case anybody asks you a question. And you can feel like you've got a good safety net of knowledge on that topic. And that's one of the best things you can do for fear, because you can be afraid and it doesn't matter, you can still crush it because you know your stuff. And I'm noticing that Mike is saying that he doesn't believe that you're an introvert, and that's a common misperception that when you see someone on a stage or on a video, they must be outgoing. That's not the case at all. I know
And
so many
so many.
excellent public speakers when they get off the stage, they don't want to talk to anybody. They're very introverted.
Yes, I've met many, many people and some of the bigger YouTubers as well, where they I went to a taping of one of the late night shows, you know, that they film
Oh
in
yeah.
LA. And what's funny is in one, because we went to two, and it was in one instance at commercial breaks or when they were setting up in between different, you know, shots and stuff, the people would come out and be like, "Hey, how's it going? What's your name? Blah blah
Oh
blah," all
right.
this stuff.
Yeah.
And then at another show where the host is very lively, he would not talk to anyone, look at anyone.
Right.
He would just look at his like cue cards and his like notes. And then as soon as the camera came on, he was like, "Hey
He would
everyone, blah
turn
blah
it
blah."
on.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
like it's interesting because if I go and I give a speech or if I'm in a YouTube video or if I'm at a conference or something like that, I feel like it's almost like I'm playing a role. It's still me, but it's like it's
Mhm.
the most hyped up version of myself that I can be. But then as soon as it's over, like, not only am I just exhausted and emotionally drained, like, I don't wanna, like, interface with anyone for, like when I came back from People of Video, I didn't wanna talk to anyone for, like, 4 days. I was like,
You
"I'm
were
done." I was
done, yeah.
like, "Shut it down." Like, "Nope, nope, we're not having any conversations." And I think that's one of those big tells as an introvert, extrovert, you know, like, I don't get energized with interactions. It doesn't mean I don't
Right,
like talking with people, but
right.
at the end of it, I feel like I have so many spoons allotted for social interactions with people and talking, and then when I'm done, like, I'm just like, "I'm done. I got nothing left in me."
And by the way, I wanna give you some props that for an extreme introvert, like I said, I couldn't tell. Not only could I not tell that you were introverted, you did a fantastic presentation, so your viewers should know that about you. You're not just good on camera. When you went up on the stage, it was the quickest hour that we had that weekend. It was just packed with value. So you can be an extreme introvert like Shelly and still excel at public speaking if you know your stuff, and if you, like you said, you get your game face on. You just
Yeah.
it's time to do it, and you just tap into that part of yourself. Maybe you're a little bit of a performer inside, and you can bring that out during your presentation and light up.
Yeah, so one thing that and especially too when I'm doing live streams and not only people know this about me anyway because I get very scatterbrained and I find I need to have like a purpose, like an end thing that needs to have been accomplished by the time hopefully the stream
Mhm.
is over. So I'm very much cognizant and aware of always having like these post-its with the bullet points of the things that I want to make sure I cover before the thing is over. And
Yeah.
then I know I can at least cover these points and feel like I will have done my job or done the like the due diligence of knowing exactly what I wanted to say and all the rest is
Right.
kind of like as it comes is fine, but
Right.
that is one thing that definitely helps me, and I feel like when you're a little bit more introverted and especially scared of public speaking, live streaming, whatever it is, as long as you can say in your like, "What is it that I really want people to leave with?" Like, "What is the main thing I want them to take from this?" And make sure, like, at least sometime during that ranting and brain dump that you get that out, and I feel, like, more accomplished when that happens. So, like,
Well,
having that goal in mind of what I want someone to walk away from is something that's very important to me as when I'm doing any of those things.
I'm wanting to jump in here because you're saying something that is very smart, and that is a lot of times when people are very nervous about public speaking, they're focused on them. They're thinking, oh, they're going to judge me, or I'm going to do terrible, or maybe they're perfectionists. But what you're saying here is you're focusing on your goal for the speech, and your goal is not to be nervous. Your goal is to make sure you hit that mark by the end, make sure you accomplish the goal of the message. So if we can do that as speakers, and I think as people who might be recording a lot of video as well, keep your eyes focused on what you're trying to accomplish with your message, and then our anxieties tend to fade to the background a little bit more, because we're there to do a job, not to
Yes.
our job is not to reduce our nervousness. Our job is to deliver a great message. And
Yes,
if we
that's
stay
exactly
focused
how
on
I
that,
feel. Yes, precisely. So I always think about that as like, as long as I delivered what I needed to, a lot of the
then
time
you
they're gonna
did
say,
it.
"Oh, she did it
Yeah,
efficiently, she did it well," and then they don't have time to really focus on me except for I got what I needed, which is yeah. Yes, because I also
exactly.
that have that fear of people being like, "Wow, this is a waste of time," or "Wow, she doesn't know what she's talking about," or "Wow," so, like, I always need to be like, "This is what you need to have learned
Yes.
before we're done
Yes.
here." So, I'm always very aware of that. Now, one thing also that I hear that happens to a lot of people whenever you're preparing for public speaking type of things, and maybe you're even going through doing a dress rehearsal or dry run of your talk,
Mhm.
I find that when you do it, you are usually at a much slower pace than when you end up sometimes in front of people. And because you get nervous, you just end up talking a mile a minute. And one of the things that maybe is different between someone who's a little bit more confident and someone who is obviously overly nervous is that they tend to speak really, really quickly, trying to get the thing over with, like subconsciously. Do you kind of find that too?
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
get it over with and then get it all out.
Yeah, we when we work with speakers, well, there are like a lot of problems. One of them is people are long-winded and they can't finish on time. They can't shut up. And then the other problem is they think it's going to be 20-minute message, but they speed through it and it's 10, and they feel like, "Oh no, you know, I rushed through this. I'm still supposed to keep talking. What do I do now?" People do speed up. Your heart rate goes up. Your probably blood pressure goes up when you speak. Everything goes faster. And so many people, I always, when I practice, I actually practice privately in a room over and over again. And I do practice pausing. I practice letting ideas sink in. I work on my rhythm so that I don't speed up too much. I always speed up a little bit, just like a happy drummer in a rock band. They speed up a little bit as the song goes on sometimes. But if you practice your pacing as well as the message, then it'll help.
For sure. So Mike is saying, the judging eyes, people carry judgment of you with them. At least that's what we think, but really they don't. And I think that is very, very accurate. Like I'm always afraid that people are gonna be like, "Wow, she's a dunce." It doesn't matter, like, how many degrees
Yeah.
you have or how many videos you've ever made in the past or whatever kind of success and accolades you may have had. You're up on that stage and you're like, "Wow, someone's gonna ask a question when we get to the question answer period, and I'm not gonna know, and I'm gonna feel really, really dumb, like I should have never been asked to talk." And
Yeah.
those thoughts totally go through my head all of the time, and someone else was like, "So why can't you just say, 'That's a good question, I'll find out and get back to you?'" And
Exactly.
my
Yeah.
heart, like, when they said that, I was just like, I could never, because, like, I have this pressure on myself that I have to have the answer and deliver it then, because if I don't, then I can't prove that I'm smart enough to be on the stage in the first place.
Right.
So, it's like a weird mental gymnastics that's happening, and so it really, like, rocked my world, trying to even imagine a scenario where I could be okay with saying something like, "That's a good question, let me find out." Like,
Yeah.
it's, like, painful. It's
It's
painful.
it's actually some of the most common public speakers. That's exactly what they do. If they don't know it, they're not embarrassed that they don't know it. They don't It doesn't bother them at all. They just think, "Oh, I should track that answer down for that person." Their focus is on helping the person, and if they don't know the answer, they'll find out. The other thing you mentioned though, I think that's very insightful, is this idea that, or someone mentioned in the chat and then you repeated it, that we assume that people are there judging us. And I think we exaggerate that in our minds way more than is. There's going to be one or two people who might have their arms folded and they're like, well, let's see. But those people are like that whether they're listening to me or you or anybody. That's just the way they are. I think in most cases, 99% of our listeners are rooting for us. They want us to do a great job. They're going to be smiling and happy and on our side. I've never seen anybody in an audience that wanted the speaker to bomb,
Like a
really.
basket of tomatoes. I
Yeah,
do.
never. I mean,
Yeah,
that's in the movies. Oh, they're going to
I
throw
know.
tomatoes at you. They're not going to throw tomatoes. They're thinking to themselves, you can do it. If you show even a little nervousness, they're like, come on, you can do it. They want you to succeed. We have in our head that they're judging us, but that's in our head. It's not in their head.
Oh, it's so good because it is terrifying, and it's one of those things. So it was maybe 2020 when I was doing resolutions for 2021. No, it might have even been 2019 for resolutions for what I wanted to accomplish in 2020, and then
Yeah.
the panini. So one thing that I had on my list was like, I want to speak at conferences. I think,
Hmm.
yeah, I think conferences. And what's funny is, how sometimes you don't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you
Mm.
just might find you get what you need.
You're
You
going
know,
to get demonetized for the singing the lyrics to a Rolling Stone
oh,
song.
I know. Oh, sorry, Mick. So one thing that happened to me is I had put on like my little vision document or what as you do, and it said, "Oh yeah, I want to speak at conferences because I feel like I have a lot of knowledge and I should share it with people, and I want to, help." And so I actually got several opportunities to do many virtual conferences as a speaker last year, and I
Mm,
was like, "Wow,
mm.
what a way to also play with some of my strengths because I didn't have to go anywhere. I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily even have to talk to people. I just had to do a session, sometimes pre-recorded, sometimes which is even better because you can edit all you want,
Hmm.
or sometimes, as a live stream and just talk to people about stuff from the comfort of my house. And I remember at one point being like, "Oh, this is rad," and then also being like, "But does this count?" And then later, being like, "That freaking counts. It counts, Shelly."
It absolutely counts.
Right? And then, this year when it came around that, like, Vid Summit happened and then People of Video, and it was like the ask was elevated. It was like, "Now you're gonna do it, like, for reals and in person," and I feel like had I not had the year of these virtual conferences and speaking helping me build my confidence up a little bit, I don't know because I was still super nervous to do in person, which thank you for saying that you didn't notice, but, like, I think if I didn't have those building blocks, I don't know if I would have been able to do it, and so
Mm,
I feel like there are these times and opportunities where it's like, it's a little bit scary, but it's a little bit better, and then something else is scary, and then it's a little bit better, and then when you look backwards, you've come quite a distance and a height, so I also feel like for some people, you can't go 0 to 1,000, it's okay to go 0 to, like, 10 and then
yeah.
go from 10 to 25. So, I don't know if you have that as part of your
Yeah.
roadmap.
There are
No.
lots of steps, talking, live streaming, or doing any kind of video, even if it's prepared, like you said, ahead of time and recorded. But also, we frequently nowadays are on Zoom calls speaking to people. That's kind of like public speaking. Maybe we're not the featured person, but we participate, we ask a question. All of that is practice. And if we are in person, then we're frequently in a group situation where maybe it's our turn to talk at least for a moment. That's a stepping stone as well. Conversations with people in a workplace, we have a structure to our conversation. When you meet with someone, you're like, okay, we've got to talk about these 3 items. That's a lot like a speech. I've got 3 points. There are many stepping stones along the way that you can draw on that'll build your confidence because you already have a lot of skills that you may not realize you have.
Perfect, and I think that people don't realize that they're actually taking these stepping stones, and even if you were to map it out in a milestone type of manner, which is the end goal, let's just say for now, is speak on a stage in front of real people, not headline
Hmm.
a stadium tour or something that's way farther down the road. But then if you take into effect, like, you're doing FaceTime calls with your family, and that's a level of comfortability, and then you're doing, like, Zoom calls with your work and people who you kind of know and, maybe don't know as well, and then after that, it's, you're doing a YouTube video or whatever else, and then a live stream, and then doing a virtual conference, and almost if you, like, map it out for people, if they're going, like, at the stepping stone type of method, it doesn't seem as
Yeah,
scary or unachievable, right? If they're
right.
just progressing.
Absolutely. No, that's wisdom. That's wisdom right there to see that those steps are already there and many people are probably already doing them without
Yeah.
realizing it.
And they're not giving themselves credit for it either because they're like, I can
Exactly.
never do a virtual conference talk or speak on a stage, right? And I'm like, hey, I didn't think I could either, but let's not forget that like all these other steps happened along the way, right? And you're thinking that it's just point A to Z. It's actually like you're up to F. You didn't even know it, so you don't
Yeah.
have much farther to go.
Yeah. You've got some skills already under your belt. Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's great.
All right. So, do you have any specific tips for like helping build confidence or like reducing these like self-sabotaging behaviors that people kind of put into place? A lot of it being fear from your own head creeping in.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest fears is perfectionism. uh, And because people get all bound up about, oh, if I make even one little mistake, it's a failure. And that's a really negative cycle. So I like to see, instead of perfectionism, I always say to myself, this is all just practice. Every presentation I do is literally, I say it's practice. It's just practice for the next one. I still want to do well, but I see it as practice. I never, even when I've been paid a lot of money to go speak places, I think it's just practice. And there's something about viewing it as not the end goal. It's just another step along the way to my getting better, that it reduces my, I'm not looking for perfection. I just want to make little improvements because I'm practicing. Another one that I have found is that most people feel very nervous, but they don't look nervous at all to the listeners. And I think just knowing that should calm us down, because they think, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm nervous. They're going to judge me. It's like, they can't tell. In fact, I was just talking to Jeff Barch. You know, Jeff,
Yeah.
he gave a great presentation. And afterward, I do this to a lot of public speakers. I'm surprised I didn't ask you. I said, how nervous did you feel? He said that he felt about an 8 or a 9 in nervousness. And I thought he looked, on a scale of 1 to 10, 8 or 9. I thought he looked about a 2 or a 3. I mean, he showed us some shirtless pictures of himself. How nervous could he be, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, that's great to realize that you might feel anxious, but you probably don't look anxious. In fact, let's ask you right now, Shelly. How were you nervous?
At people of video?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, yes.
I
So
could not
nervous.
tell, especially when you yelled at me. I
I
had
know.
no
I was
idea
gonna
you were
say maybe
nervous.
that's why you didn't ask me directly a question afterwards, because 'cause you're like, "Oh, she's gonna yell
I
at me
better give her some space.
again." So, I think you guys heard it hopefully in the other stream, but if you did not, poor Alex was in the audience, and then he had the bravery inside of him to raise his hand, ask a question, and I looked at him straight in the face and I said, "You shut your lips and learn," and then I just kept going with my talk, and it's ironic that I did that to a communication coach and I told him to be quiet, but, I find it so hilarious, but
Oh,
I
it was
know you heard
hilarious.
me.
I loved it, and everybody else loved it too.
I know.
Um,
I thought it
but
was so fun.
I just was getting so excited about your message, and I almost couldn't believe my ears. So I was like, "Wait a minute, is she really saying?" Because you were talking about TubeBuddy, and has some features I didn't realize. I've been using the side note. You delivered value in that presentation because I've been using those features ever since.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That's so cool. Um, see, I did my job. My
You did
Post-its
you
were
did a great job. I had no idea you were nervous. I mean, if you're
oh,
yelling at your audience, then you don't come across as nervous. So anyway, those are a couple of things. You don't look as nervous as you feel, and think about practice, not perfection. And people
yeah.
are not judging you anywhere near the level that you think people are judging you. It's just not the case. Everybody's rooting for you.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because if you look at probably either of us now, we're hundreds of videos in on our channel,
Hmm.
and we probably have a specific cadence or style perhaps now. But if you
Right.
go back a few hundred videos, it's
Ooh.
probably yeah, it's probably not the same.
I
I
look
every
at
once
my
in a
first
while will go
videos,
down
and
the archives. Yeah, and you
I
look and
leave
you're
them.
like,
You leave them up there? I leave my old ones up.
"Oh, yeah, I do."
Yeah, I
But
do
I
too.
had a previous, beauty channel for a little while, and not only was, like, the lighting awful, the sound was awful, I posted every once in a while on Instagram, and I'll be like, "Look at baby Shelly." I was like, "But her hair looks pretty good," but, like, it was, like, there's some of the worst videos you've probably ever seen,
Yeah.
and I was like, "You can't judge as well if you came in now and, you're like, it's
You
just not
can't.
the
You
same." And
can't
those
you
are those
can't
milestones,
go.
stepping stones, right? Like, you
You
think, "Oh,
have to go
500
through
views."
that. Yeah. There's no way through it but through the mud. There's no fast forward button on getting good at public speaking. Everybody starts where they are, and the only way to get better is to do it over and over again. Same with video, same with anything like that. It's a skill. It's a skill. You can't go out there and throw a touchdown on your first pass in a football game. You have to start when you're young, learn how to throw that ball, and it just takes time like any skill.
Yeah, it's so funny is, I don't know, like, maybe I made it up or maybe I heard it somewhere and I was trying to be clever, but someone was saying, like, everyone's always looking for, like, the escalator, and I'm
Yeah,
like, "But the escalator is, like, broken," and then you don't realize
right.
it's just stairs.
It's just stairs.
It's just stairs, you know? So,
Just stairs.
it's just stairs, man.
That's a
Okay.
life lesson. That's wisdom.
Is, right? I
Yeah.
agree, I agree. So, okay, so we've talked a little bit about building small milestones for yourself and
Mhm.
a little bit about preparing and how sometimes the only way through it is through it.
Yeah.
So, is there any other, like, specific type of message that you really wanna get out there for people to be like, "This is how you kind of conquer it," and then kick it up a notch with, "This is how you conquer it even when you're scared."
Right. I I always come back to practice. I don't think people practice enough. I've been working with speakers a long time. I always say minimum, you should go through your message 10 times, minimum. And I know a lot of people who have told me, "Oh, I get nervous. I want to get better at speaking." And I'll saying, "Well, what do you do to prepare?" And they'll say, "Well, I draft my notes. I have my talking points, and I just sort of read through it, make sure it's what I want to say. And then when I go up there, I just try to, bring it to life." And I'll say, "Okay, well, that may be why you don't feel as confident as you want to. If you practice it 10 times," they say, "10 times? That's a long time." Well, yeah, it's a long time, but it's what is going to get you the results. And even people that are amazing public speakers like Steve Jobs, people are always like, "Oh my gosh, Steve Jobs from Apple, he was one of the most compelling speakers. He just had it. He just really let his ideas sink in." They say that Steve Jobs would practice a 10-minute message hundreds of times before he got in front of a crowd. And then it just seems so easy for him. Well, it was easy for him because he had already practiced it 100 times. So I think people don't practice nearly enough because they want to avoid it. They think, "Oh, I'm nervous. I'll just avoid it. And then I'll just try to, like you said earlier, I just try to get through it without doing something horrible." Practice like crazy. So this is, I recommend like 3-3-3. So 3 days before, talk through your outline just from a seated position. 3 days before, make changes. Make sure all the big chunks are in the right spots 3 days before. Then the second day before the presentation, turn it into an outline where you stand up and speak. Try to pare down your notes a little bit, stand up and speak a little bit like you're moving your body around, getting comfortable in the space, pretending like you're in front of people, but still just practicing, making adjustments to the outline. And then the night before or the day before, practice 3 more times. Put your jacket on or whatever outfit you're going to wear. Pretend you're using your visual aids so you don't get jammed up with technology and you like can't find your slides. 3 times the night before, and then one more time that morning. So you wake up a little earlier, go through the hard parts one more time, mutter through your outline. You don't have to make it a dress rehearsal the morning of, but mutter through your outline, make sure you've got it and you own it. When people do it that way, 3-3-3 plus 1 in the morning, they almost always give an amazing presentation. Because here's the big bottom line: 95% of how a presentation turns out is worked out based upon how you prepared and practiced. There's only about 5% variability that changes. In most cases, presentations come out pretty close to the way people prepared. So I just think they need to invest more time and more reps in the preparation stage. I think that's the if I have one thing I would encourage you all to do, is just prepare more, practice more days in advance.
That is amazing. Okay, first of all, there's so much that you just said in there that I have to unpack a couple of things there. I could probably listening to you, I don't know where you were because I definitely needed to practice more because I will tell you when I gave my speech at Vid Summit, which was 1 week before the speech at People of Video, it was, a week apart, but it was the same, mainly actually the same topics and points and everything. What's interesting is it wasn't the same, like in the way that I delivered it, in the timing, in the ending, in the questions. And what was crazy about it is that I felt at Vid Summit, I was just like, there were things in my speaker notes that I had put like, "Oh, there's a little, antidote here. Make sure you mention this story or make sure you mention this
Yeah.
little factoid," or something like that. And then I got so nervous and I wasn't looking at those things and I didn't see
Right.
them that, I completely skipped them, making my speech shorter. And one of them was almost leading up to what was going to be the punchline at the end of the joke, which no one was gonna understand because I never told my reference story earlier to have it, like,
Yeah,
tie
yeah.
back as a loop. And I remember being like, "Oh, I missed this entire thing," and it's because I prepared my notes, I did it, like, out loud, once, I recorded it once, and then, I think, I had given a presentation to some people at work who, they weren't gonna be able to come, and then they gave me some notes to go back and fix or change some stuff, and I did, but then I didn't go back and, like, record it again and do it again. I was just like, "Okay, yeah,
Mhm.
we're gonna do it," and I had all these speaker notes, and then, yeah, I had messed up the timing of knowing when I was supposed to look at the notes before going to the next slide, so I missed the thing, and I missed, my story prompt, and so, yeah, had I probably practiced it 3 times, or whatever leading up to it, like, I would have been in that flow to remember it, and that speech would have been, let's say, even better. So, I mean,
Mm.
that's so it's true though, and when you're like 10 times, you have to do it until it's just, like, ingrained, it's just easy. It reminds me of, like, when people would say you don't practice until you can't get it wrong, or it's like you don't
Mm.
practice till you get it right, you practice so that you can't get it wrong. 'Cause it
Yeah.
doesn't even matter, you can just go out there and just say it like a Steve Jobs 10 minutes, and my dad too, bless his heart. He was always like, "Honey, you know, piss poor performance or prior planning prevents piss poor performance," was always his thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, so much of what you just said, that was great stuff, and Mike is saying that was great. Dasaris is saying, yes, all the things.
Awesome.
That was
Yeah.
amazing. That's such good advice, and I think you're right on, and when Stephen King is saying, like, people say they wanna be writers, and what they don't do is write, continually
Yes.
write bad, write
Yes.
well, whatever, just keep writing, and I feel like if it's something like this, public speaking or whatever else it is, you have to do it. You can't just talk about doing it, you can't
That's right.
theorize about doing it, you have to, the only way through it is through it.
Yeah.
The only way through
Yeah.
it is to do it, whatever.
Yeah. It's a skill, not a natural born talent. I really believe that.
And I think that you just said that right there. So people think that, oh, some people just have it, and
Yeah.
some people may have that personality and can do it, but it is still a skill, like a muscle that can be built up over time. It can be, broken down and built up and
Yeah.
flexed. And it is something myself as proof. You don't have to be comfortable at doing it, but you can still fool others into thinking you're pretty decent at it. So
That's
there's
right.
that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wherever you start, some people do have a little bit more ease with it at first, but I would put somebody who practices a lot ahead of somebody who has a talent but doesn't work at it, because you will get anybody can get better the more they practice.
Oh, such good knowledge bombs you're dropping here. I love that.
Should have
And
dropped them earlier.
no, I think it's great. People are they'll have to come and watch this whole stream so they can get the nuggets. But is there anything else that you want to share with people or things that you want to talk and chat about?
I would just encourage everybody listening to do some kind of speaking publicly, whether you're just training people in your department or whether someone invites you to do a speech or someone says, "Can you do announcements at church on Sunday?" Do it, because it is such a great skill and it's portable. You can take it into any career. Shelly's worked at some big name organizations. You can use it any workplace you go into. There's always an opportunity to speak. Nobody else wants to do it, and you're going to distinguish yourself very quickly if you're willing to step up to that plate and do some speaking. So get practice any way you possibly can.
And because you mentioned that, I will say that in doing some research and preparation for you to come, I was telling you this right before we went on. It said that being bad at public speaking, and I don't and I hesitate to say that, but either the fear of it maybe held people back or they just weren't very good at public speaking and they needed some help. But a lot of people feared that it would harm them when it comes to promotions, that it would harm them when it came to workplace reputation,
Hmm.
and they could be passed over for promotions or things like that because of the fact that they either weren't vocal or, it's like, hey, this person's really smart, but we can never send him to a conference or we can never have him present
Right.
anything or we can never, but this person is, is able to do all of those things. So all of a sudden it became easier to maybe promote the person who's good at public speaking. So not to say that it can't be harmful to you, but it could be beneficial to your career to excel at public speaking as well.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. It's a huge boost to almost anyone's career to get better at communication skills, especially public speaking. Great
Yeah.
point.
And communication skills between people, even just between you and a supervisor, you and a coworker, anything like that, just because it's not speaking on stage in front of people, a lot of the same principles apply when it comes
Yep.
to how clearly and effectively can you communicate with other people. What's your tone and
Yeah.
inflection like when you're communicating with them? Are you able to deliver a point and have deliver understanding and agreement and going forward? So all of those types of skills, absolutely.
Mhm.
So if people wanted to learn more about communication skills, I know you said for leaders, for business people, for entrepreneurs, all the things. Tell them what they can expect for the people who maybe don't know you, what they can expect if they come over and visit your channel.
Well, my channel is all about this, everything we've been talking about, public speaking, communication skills, especially leadership development. So I post weekly videos on all of those topics, a lot of how-tos, a lot of tips. I do some communication breakdowns on noteworthy things that are happening in the news as well, just to dissect it a little bit and geek out on that. But yeah, just go to the channel. I've been doing it for 5 years. There's hundreds of videos.
And I was actually going to chat with you about this because I saw this interesting thread today and I was going to suggest this could be a new series. Not that you need more videos on your channel, but I'm just saying if you're interested. There is an HR lady, former HR from some of these larger
Mm,
companies. And so people will kind of do like a Dear Abby to her about situations in their
right.
workplace, right?
Right.
And so she'll communicate effectively. Like someone said, like, my employee quit on the spot because I wouldn't let her have time off for college graduation ceremony.
Mm,
And it was something like, I was really surprised and, because she's my best employee, but blah, blah, blah. Another one was like, an employee had the audacity to talk back or say something to a manager because we messed up her paycheck like 2 weeks in a row or something like that.
mm.
And so she's coming from an HR perspective saying like, yeah, absolutely. She's not the one with out of whack priorities. You are, right? But I thought it
Yeah,
would be really interesting to almost have you come in and be like, okay, so maybe we know that this situation isn't correct, but how would you even approach a conversation like this with communication skills that you've learned and built up over the years so that,
right.
no one feels threatened and or like if you needed to have that conversation with a boss about how your paycheck is messed up, how can you do that while still coming off as, respectful but forceful and
Yeah,
tactful, that kind of thing. So
that's great. No,
I thought that'd
those
be
are
fun
great
for you.
ideas. Yeah, those are great.
I thought it'd be fun. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and hop off for tonight. I will make sure to come back because I don't know if it's in there or not to leave the link to Alex's channel because it was in the last live stream, but I'm not sure if it's in the stream. We'll see on that one. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Is there anything that you want to say to the people as a goodbye?
Thanks for watching and commenting. It was fun interacting. And thank you, Shelly, for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. I'm glad we overcame our technical difficulties.
I know, right? It's just another milestone to
Yeah,
like public domination, the world
that's
taking over
right.
the metaverse next. Watch out, Zuckerberg. All right, everyone, have a great Thursday, and
Bye
we will
bye.
see you all in a video very soon on the YouTubes. Bye.
Bye.